From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
Groundhog Day, my friends. I think winter, well, for most of us, is going to be here for a lot more than 6 weeks. We'll see. Another big day here on the program, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom, making sure you have the right person to shoulder the problems with you as you go forward. Let's get rolling. Three big things to cover today. Here is number one. A rare brutal cold snap had iguanas raining from the sky in Florida, and a big chance for residents to make bank. You see, there's money to be made collecting the invasive species. Number two, Iran actually performing some military exercises in the Persian Gulf and threatening the United States with a regional war if we get involved with the rising unrest in that nation. I guess they still didn't get the memo. And number three, we've been trying to warn voters since the very beginning. Since the inception of this program, the Democrats do not care about you. In fact, a whole herd of politicians don't care about you, but there are those that think you will fall for the lies forever. Why wouldn't they think that? I mean, it's been working for such a very long time. They run on issues that sound warm and fuzzy and compassionate, and then they pretend to stick up for the little guy. Pretend to stick up for the little guy. But at the end of the day, they tax and tax with nothing to show for it. They crash good economies and create dysfunctional programs in the name of progress. But of course, this warning falls on deaf ears among actual Democrat voters. They continue to vote in people like Abigail Spanberger, who ran for governor as a moderate in Virginia, and since winning has proven herself to be anything but moderate. Democrats now hold control in both chambers of the state's legislature and the governor's seat. And guess what their first order of business has been? More than 50 new tax proposals that would affect every average Virginian, everyone. They're inventing new ways to milk every last dime out of Virginia's economy and put it into the government's coffers to spend it on God only knows what. These proposals include taxes on services like walking your dog, having a gym membership, dry cleaning, digital goods. There's a gas tax increase, an 11% tax on firearms and ammunition sales, and specifically a $500 tax on all firearm suppressors, all on top of a proposal to push the state's income tax as high as 13.8% on some Virginia earners, which would make it, by the way, the highest state tax in the nation, beating out even California. The Virginia Republican runs through even more far-left measures being proposed by this Democrat trifecta. Listen to this.
The onslaught of far-left bills being dropped by Democrats here in Virginia has garnered national attention, but it's worth just a quick review. So we got new taxes on Uber rides, Amazon orders, new higher tax brackets, new taxes on investments, raising the hotel tax, new taxes on home deliveries, gym memberships, streaming services, barbershops, dry cleaners, and more. Banning gas-powered leaf blowers, loosening election integrity laws, a slew of anti-Second Amendment bills, a bill that would prohibit requiring verification of nonprofits that receive federal dollars, so it's like an anti-fraud measure, weakening penalties for even the worst crimes, murder, rape, robbery, assaulting police officers, creating a process for letting convicts out early with no limiting principle as to the crime in question, allowing state contracts to be given out based on the race of the contractor, or gambling of all kinds, neighborhood slot machines, online sports betting, ending qualified immunity for police. I guess this is the affordability agenda we were promised?
Not exactly. But it is exactly what I'm talking about when I say Democrats do not care about you. He's right to point out that Spanberger very dishonestly ran on an affordability campaign. We have the receipts, of course. It's what we do. Listen.
Only candidate on stage who's put forth a plan to actually lower costs for Virginians.
Whether it's affordability, your rent going up, we need a governor who will stand up against the chaos.
We will work relentlessly to make life more affordable for our fellow Virginians.
Yeah, but none of those measures that I or that Republican listed out help her constituents live in a more affordable Virginia. And it begs the question, why they need all those new tax dollars? because Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin left the state with an impressive $2.7 billion surplus. That's after granting $9 billion in tax relief, making good on investments in education, law enforcement, and health care. So again, why do they need all these new tax dollars? 50 or more proposals for new taxes. The number one reason cited by Virginia Democrats is Medicaid coverage. So once again, a failed, dysfunctional Democrat-created problem is costing the people an absurd amount of their own money. But there are a few other reasons, a few others, that the state's politicians are not as forthcoming about. One of those is salary increases for the legislators themselves. These lawmakers don't work more than 60 days a year on average, and they want their salaries doubled. They need tax dollars to make it work, even though there's this $2.7 billion surplus in front of them. They don't care. Another reason is to fund government grants that give lawmakers even more money to buy a house. Give lawmakers even more money to buy a house. You heard me right. Not loan, give. Democrats say it's hard to find people who want to work in government because they can't afford housing in the area. But the last thing anyone should want is a politician who was bribed with housing grants to be in charge of policy over those very grants. Sounds like a bit of a conflict of interest, doesn't it? All in all, it's a mess. And President Trump shares my sentiment when he expresses confusion over how Democrats like Spanberger even get elected by voters in the first place. Here he is.
About Virginia, actually. Virginia flipped the governors, and now they're looking at 50 proposals to increase taxes. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's terrible. I think a lot of people will leave Virginia. I saw that. Look, Glenn was a friend of mine, Glenn Youngkin, and worked so hard on cutting taxes. This woman came in, and in one swoop, she raised everything up higher than it ever was. I don't understand it. I mean, people voted for Democrat, but she came in and she raised, and I'll work with her like I work with everyone else. But she came into Virginia, raised everything to a point like taxes that nobody ever even heard of before. And I don't understand. How do people get elected with this kind of philosophy? This is only in the very modern age. You know, I grew up and I've always heard politicians will cut taxes, everybody screaming we're going to cut taxes. I cut taxes. I gave you the biggest tax cut in the history of our country, in the great big beautiful bill.
Yeah, of course, Democrats rely on dishonesty and good old-fashioned cheating to win elections, too, something that's being proven with every passing day, it seems. It's not just taxes that are going up in Virginia. They're also seeing record high energy bills. Listen to this very concerned resident.
I just got my energy bill for the month. Dominion Energy out of Virginia. My bill has tripled. Like, I usually pay about $200, on a regular, $300 on a high note. $621. That's more than my car payment. What the actual hell is going on?
What in the actual hell is going on? Little known fact for you, the Democrat-led Virginia State Corporation Commission approved Dominion Energy's rate increase late 2025, and it started last month. What happened to Democrats siding with the little guy over corporations? Disastrous energy policies are what happened. Affordability? 50 new taxes. Don't worry, they'll bring that to the whole country if they get back in power. Plus a lot of other problems. Open borders, higher taxes. Wow. Wake up, please. Please wake up. Welcome to the new week. It's the Steve Gruber Show. I'll be right back. Let's continue now with the new governor of Virginia. Governor Spanberger has committed more than once on air to banning oil and gas in her state altogether. You just heard the woman talking about her electric bill, over $600, more than her car payment. And Spanberger affirms her support for the Virginia Clean Energy Act, which mandates that the state's major utilities, Dominion Energy being one, generate 100% of its electricity from, quote, renewable sources. Can't be done, by the way. Now, it can't be done. The math doesn't work. So buckle in, Virginians, because your energy bills are only going up from here as long as you continue voting for Democrats. This is what happens when energy policy is driven by ideology instead of common sense. Families increasingly pressured toward all-electric living. Affordable options are taken off the table, and people are buried under state mandates and so-called green fees built into their energy bills, like this woman in nearby Massachusetts is also finding out. Listen.
I just got my electric bill for the month of December 4th to January 6th. My usage amount, like the actual amount of electricity I used, was 1,880 kilowatts. We have electric heat, everything in our house is electric. The actual cost of the electricity, $291. Total delivery services, $397. How is that more than the electricity I use? What do I do about this? Is there something I can do? Help me.
Yeah, move to Tennessee. That'd be a start. Or 100 other places. We've had plenty of time to compare green energy scams with energy-dominant policies, so it blows my mind that people are still voting for these scams, and they are scams. That right there is what you get from climate change alarmists. This is what you get when your leaders put their focus on America first, by the way. Here's what it looks like.
Gasoline has plunged to, think of this, over $4 a gallon, depending on where you are. In California, it's $7, $8 a gallon. I was in Iowa, and they had $1.85, because I had it at $1.99 a gallon. And I was corrected by two farmers that said, I just bought my gasoline for $1.85 rapidly. And, you know, when energy goes down, everything else goes down. And just as I promised, we've defeated the Biden inflation nightmare and achieved explosive new economic growth. The Atlanta Fed is predicting an astounding 5.4% GDP growth in the fourth quarter. And that's despite the fact that we had a Democrat shutdown. We would have had, that number would have been 7%, which is a number nobody's ever heard of. Just yesterday, the S&P 500 hit 7,000 for the first time ever. There's never been any time at which it's done like that. And the other stocks also, I think it was 52 times for the Dow, had hit a record high. But the 7,000 was not a number that was even thinkable if you go back a year ago. Biden inflation, which is really stagflation, cost the typical family $34,000. Think of that, $34,000. But after 1 year, growth in real incomes is outpacing inflation by more than 3,000 under Trump.
There you go. That's what it looks like when you deliver wins for the American people in just 1 year so far. It's why the media and Democrats are so focused on demonizing ICE and DHS right now, because they need to distract the American people from the promises made and promises kept that we're currently seeing from Washington. Of course, there's plenty more to be done. And a lot of damage inflicted on our economy by disastrous policies, and we may never able to undo those damages. We may not ever fix it. But these are steps in the right direction, even while some, as I've shown, some states are continuing in the wrong direction in some cities, most notably New York City. After decades of mostly Democrat leadership, the Big Apple is facing a $10 billion budget deficit. And the communist wannabe Zoran Mamdani is rolling out the usual, tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. Here he is.
We are speaking about a fiscal crisis at the scale greater than the Great Recession. And so there will not be one single thing that can answer that crisis. It will require us to pursue every single avenue. That means looking inward into savings and efficiencies. That also means raising taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers and the most profitable corporations. And it means recalibrating the relationship with the state.
Of course, a beginner's course in economics teaches that these kinds of policies drive out the very corporations and people who prop up the city's economy. Reality that Zoran is obviously not in touch with. Even the state's governor, Kathy Hochul, knows this. Listen.
So Mayor Mamdani has said that he doesn't think that wealthy people and corporations would actually leave if their taxes go up. Do you disagree with that?
It's not a gamble I want to take, because we're already down about $13 billion in revenues from people who did leave our state. And when asked, many of them do complain about the taxes in New York, something I'm trying to do something about.
Will they ever learn? Well, the evidence suggests they will not. In the end, the Democrat playbook never changes. Fake compassion, endless taxes, and policies that crush families while enriching themselves. Virginia and New York prove it. Surpluses squandered, bills soaring, all for their radical agendas. So I deliver one more warning to voters. Wake up. Trump's delivering real economic wins. Let's ditch the scams and keep America first. It's our only plan. unless you want 50 new taxes in your state or at the federal level. Look, we're $150 trillion in debt. I know you've heard 38 or 40, but when you price in Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, the real number is north of $150 trillion, and they want more. Think about it. Everyone knows the next medical crisis is just around the corner, whether it comes in the form of a crippling winter storm or a pandemic or something much more mundane like a tick bite. You and your family need to be prepared. That's where the Wellness Company comes in. The Wellness Company, it's doctors like Peter McCullough on this program regularly. The Wellness Company and its doctors are medical professionals that you can trust. Their prescription line of medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you and your family safe and healthy. Whether it's the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of these medications. Rest assured knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help keep you and your family safe. Go to twc.health/Gruber today. twc.health/Gruber today and order. Save 10% when you do. These kits are on my shelf. They should be on yours too. Don't get caught short, my friends. twc.health/Gruber. Save 10% right now. Welcome to it. It's going to be a big week. I'll be right back. It is The Steve Gruber Show.